He was once a slave, a man imprisoned for debts, condemned for a crime he didn't commit. But God had a plan. From the ashes of disgrace, he rose to become the Bishop of Rome, the Pope who changed the heart of the Church forever. This is the story of Saint Pope Callistus I, the slave who became a saint. The 2nd century was a world of power and persecution. The Roman Empire was mighty and merciless. Christians were hunted, accused, and martyred. And within the Church, divisions grew between those who saw salvation as a privilege of the pure and those who believed in mercy for the sinner. Into this chaos, a humble slave was born. His name was Callistus. Callistus worked as a slave for a wealthy Christian in Rome. Trusted with managing funds, he invested them, but the business failed. Desperate to recover losses, he fled, but was caught and thrown into the mines of Sardinia, where prisoners rarely survived. Down there, surrounded by death and despair, Callistus prayed, "Lord, if you ever free me, I will serve you all my life." And then, a miracle, through the intercession of Christians close to the emperor's household, Callistus was freed. He returned, not as a slave, but as a servant of the Church. Pope Zephyrinus saw something divine in Callistus, humility forged in suffering and wisdom born of pain. He appointed him as deacon and gave him charge of the Christian cemetery along the Appian Way, today known as the Catacombs of Saint Callistus. These underground tombs became a sacred refuge for persecuted Christians and a symbol of hope in the darkness. Every carving on the wall whispered one truth: the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the Church. When Pope Zephyrinus died, the Church needed a leader strong enough to heal its wounds and humble enough to guide it with mercy. Against all odds, the once imprisoned slave Callistus was chosen as Bishop of Rome, Pope Callistus I in the year 217 AD. But not everyone rejoiced. His old rival, Hippolytus, accused him of being too forgiving, too merciful, because Pope Callistus believed that no sin was too great for God's mercy. At a time when many leaders wanted to excommunicate sinners forever, Callistus declared something radical, that repentance opens the doors of heaven, even for grave sinners. He extended forgiveness to adulterers, murderers, and even apostates. Critics called him weak, but Callistus stood firm. The Church is not a church for the perfect. It is a hospital for the broken. This mercy would later shape the very heart of Christian doctrine, but his mercy made him enemies, both inside and outside the Church. Hippolytus broke away, declaring himself the first antipope in history. Meanwhile, the Roman authorities renewed their persecution. Callistus continued to shelter Christians, celebrate Mass in secret, and bury the dead until the soldiers came for him. In the year 222 AD, he was captured, tortured, and thrown into a well. There, the Pope who forgave everyone gave his life for faith. St. Pope Callistus I reminds us that mercy is the soul of justice. He taught the Church that God's forgiveness is not weakness. It is divine strength. Today, pilgrims still visit the catacombs of Callistus, where thousands of early Christians were buried and where hope triumphed over persecution. He may have begun his life in chains, but in God's plan, even a slave can win the crown of sainthood. From the darkness of the mines to the light of the papal throne, St. Callistus' life is proof that no past is too broken and no sinner too far gone for God's mercy. The greater the sin, the greater the mercy that awaits. May we, too, learn to forgive as he did. And may his story remind us that in God's eyes, the last can truly become first. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the Saint's Path, where the light of faith still shines.